Yeah. Good morning from Tegal, Central Java, Indonesia. I would like to say hi to Dr. Sanchita. Good morning, Dr. Sanchita. Am I audible?
Very good morning to you.
Yeah. Good morning from us. Also, I'd like to address to Associate Professor Dr. Aratrika. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay, so I'd like to open this session, but could you please to wait for like 3 minutes while our students are preparing for the Zoom meeting?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think we can start right now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Dr. Sanchita Saha from EIILM Kolkata, India, the Honorable Assistant Professor Pia Darsini Katarji, also from the EIILM Kolkata, India, lecturer at Faculty of Economic and Business, also all the students who are now being online for the online student sit-in program and public lecture held by Universitas Pancasakti Tegal in collaboration with EIILM Kolkata, India. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is our second day of the sit-in program, and our agenda today is 2 lectures by Dr. Sanchita Saha and also by Assistant Professor Pia Darsini Katarji. So without the further ado, I'd like to start the first lectures delivered by Dr. Sanchita Saha. Dr. Sanchita Saha, please take it away.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen first.
Yes, please.
Is my presentation visible?
It's processing, I guess. It is still loading.
Visible now?
Not yet, Dr. Sanchita.
Ma'am, it's still loading.
Yeah, it's still loading.
Still loading?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it still loading?
Yes, it is still loading.
Shall I share it with you and you can operate from here?
Okay, sure. Or you may try one more time, Dr. Sanchita.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try.
Sure. Still it doesn't work. So yeah, you can send it to me, Dr. Sanchita, so I can show from here.
Is it coming?
Not yet.
So let me share it with you first.
Yes, sure.
Could you please ping me in WhatsApp?
Yeah, sure. I'll text you. Yeah, already text you.
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay, so I think you may start right now, Dr. Sanchita.
Please give it in slideshow. Slideshow.
Yeah, okay, wait a second. Okay.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the inconvenience. Once again, a very good morning to all distinguished professors and staff members present here and my dear students. Today, I'm going to speak on the topic India Beyond 2020, a journey through challenges. You will be surprised to know that I have delivered lecture on the same topic 10 years back. But then the background of the topics was different. Next slide, please. In 1998, our former president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Dr. Rajan published a book, Beyond 2020, a vision document for the new millennium that charted how India could become one of the top 5 economic power in the world by 2020. And Beyond 2020 provides an action plan for that transformation. But after COVID-19 pandemic, 2020 poses a different meaning for all of us. Thus, the background of my presentation is now not based on this book. Rather, it is based on the situation of 2020, actually the situation in the post-pandemic world. Next slide, please. So, next. So, next slide. So, before starting discussion on the topic India Beyond 2020, let me first tell you what will be the learning outcome of this presentation. The first outcome will be you will be able to understand the current state of global economy in the post-pandemic world. Second outcome will be, you will be able to understand the current economic scenario of India. Then we will identify the developmental gap, and finally, we will recommend some policy for sustainable growth. Next. In the last century, several events recollected that have had an adverse impact on the global economy. The two World Wars are still vivid in public memory, along with the Spanish flu and Great Depression. Regional conflict between have been several, as also recurrent oil shocks. The previous millennium closed with the East Asian crisis, and the new millennium in its first decade opened with the technological bust, followed several years later by the global financial crisis. I'm talking about 2000, the year 2000. The second decade means 2010 onwards. The second decade, apart from minor episodes of the taper tantrum and growing trade tensions between the superpower, had gone relatively incident-free globally, although Europe had its moments of stress during the decade. Before the third decade, I mean 2020, of the new millennium commenced, incidents of global economic turbulence were generally spaced out, allowing economics breathing time to recover before preparing for the next challenges. So started from 2000 to 2020, actually the global economy underwent by three major or direct shocks. The first shock, COVID-19 pandemic notified by WHO, we all know, in January 2020. 2 years later, I mean 2022, as the global economy was recovering from the pandemic-induced output contraction. We all know that during pandemic situation, output or the production level reduced. The Russia-Ukraine conflict broke out in February 2022, triggering a swing in commodity prices and thus accelerating existing inflationary pressures. So the students of economics, they all know that when there is a reduction in production, then due to supply shortage, there will be inflationary situation. So the Ukraine-Russia war is one of the reasons for inflation. This war posed the second challenge. So the first challenge was COVID-19, the second challenge was Ukraine-Russia war. Soon after, challenge emerged when nations undertook monetary tightening to restrain in inflation, causing growth to weaken. So then what happened? In order to control this inflationary situation, the central bank of US economy, they have imposed monetary tightening policy by increasing different rates. So when they increase the rate, what will happen? The currency, US currency has become costlier compared to other currencies. So when it becomes costlier, then the country, those who are importing from US, their budget will be more. So if your budget is more, then there will be some deficit in terms of trade deficit. So these three challenges were very much influential for the global economy. And you can see from the graph that I have taken this data from International Monetary Fund, and most of the global data are from International Monetary Fund, and the data which I will show you is from Economic Survey of India 2023. So global economic growth for 2023 is 2.8%, and it is projected that it will be 3% in 2024. Next slide. So this slide is same as before. Here I have mentioned, here I have shown some of the countries or some of the continents, the growth rate of different continents at a glance. Next. This is the rising commodity basket. Next. This is the comparison between advanced economy and emerging economy. Yes, from here. So like rest of the world, India too faced this extraordinary set of challenges, but withstood them better than most economies. You can see that the projected growth rate of India is far above than the world average. So if we look few years back, so in order to understand the situation, what is happening after post-pandemic period, we need to look back. So if we look few years back, Indian economy has undergone a transformative process of new age reform in the last 9 years. So I'm talking about 2014. Last 9 years means 2014. These diverse policies converge towards improving economic overall efficiency and lifting its potential growth. To achieve the broader policy goal of unleashing the productive potential of the economy and its people, the reform aimed at enhancing the ease of living and doing business at the fundamental level. So next slide. The use of technology, the next one, the use of technology, in particular digital technology, undergirds the reform. The economic energy and positive mindset that the reform unleashed would have led a sharp acceleration in growth. So the reform undertaken before 2014 primarily catered to product and capital market space. They were necessary and continued post 2014 as well. The government, however, imparted a new dimension to this reform in the last 9 years with an underlying emphasis on enhancing the ease of living, I just have mentioned, and at the same time ease of doing business and improving economic efficiency. The reform are well placed to lift the economy's potential growth. Next. So you can see that how they have lifted the potential economy, growth of economy. Number one, by creating public goods. Number two, by increasing agricultural productivity. Then by creating trust-based governance, and also by inviting public sector to participate more in the process of production. So in the last few 5 years, one of the next slide, important objective of Indian budget is inclusive growth. So in this period of time, we all are talking about inclusive growth. Now, what is inclusive growth and how the growth can be inclusive in nature? First of all, the growth is inclusive when it creates jobs. Both official and unofficial sources confirm that employment level in India have risen in the current financial year. The periodic labor force survey shows that the urban unemployment rate for people aged 15 years and above declined from 9.8% in the quarter ending September 2021 to 7.2% 1 year later. So we can see that the urban growth rate is rising over time. So urban growth rate is rising. This is the first concern of inclusive growth. Now the next one, next slide. So at the same time, there is some improvement in the rural welfare indicator. So inclusive growth means growth for all, where we can reduce the income inequality, where we can create more employment. So from the data itself, it is proof that India is walking on the path of inclusive growth. Next. When India prepared itself to grow in a double-digit figure, then at the same time, India beyond the year 2020 embarked on a transformative journey that presented numerous challenges and opportunities. As we investigate into this journey, it is important to acknowledge the key challenges India faced and the way in which it endeavored to overcome them. So these are the challenges which I have listed down. The first challenge, obviously, in spite of double-digit growth target, the economic growth and development is one of the most important challenge, and India faced the challenge of sustaining and accelerating its economic growth. While the country had experienced significant progress in the preceding year, it needed to address various issues such as income inequality, again unemployment, and infrastructural development. To tackle these challenges, India focused on initiatives like Make in India campaign, infrastructural development programs, and skill development initiatives to boost job creation and attract investment. Now, the second challenge which India has faced is the environmental sustainability. It is the balancing of economic growth with environmental sustainability. Rapid industrialization and urbanization had led to environmental degradation. We all know it gets pollution and depletion of natural resources. So, how to address this issue? To address this issue, Indian government implemented policy to promote renewable energy, increase forest cover, and reduce pollution. The third challenge is agricultural reform. India's agricultural sector encountered challenges such as low productivity, lack of modernization, and farmer distress. The government introduced reform to liberalize the agricultural sector, including the passage of Farmer Production, Trade and Commerce Act 2020. These reforms aim to provide farmers with better market access, reduce intermediaries, and enhance their income potential. The third challenge is healthcare and education. The COVID-19 pandemic, we all know, highlighted the vulnerabilities in India's healthcare system. Beyond 2020, India focused on strengthening its healthcare infrastructure, investing in medical research and development, and expanding access to quality healthcare services across the country. The next challenge is related with the social issues. India grappled with various social issues such as gender inequality and caste-based discrimination and religious tension. The government worked towards promoting inclusivity, empowering marginalized communities, and implementing policies to ensure equal opportunities for all citizens. And the last challenge is technological advancement. We all know that now we are in the digital era. So India recognized the importance of technological advancement and digital transformation. The government launched initiatives such as Digital India, which aimed to enhance digital infrastructure, promote e-governance, and improve access to technology in rural areas. So as we have discussed that despite these challenges, India witnessed significant progress and achievement. So there are some opportunities also. The country, India, continued to be one of the fastest growing economy globally with a focus on sustainable development and social inclusivity. So by leveraging its demographic dividend, promoting innovation and investing in human capital, India worked towards creating a prosperous and inclusive future for all its citizens. So with this, I am concluding my presentation. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Sanchita Saha. Well, for me, actually, in my opinion, Dr. Sanchita, I'm surprised that you say that agricultural reform is becoming more important than technology advancement. As I know that India is very advanced in terms of technology, but how come that agricultural is more important in reform of the economic in India? Could you please give your opinion about it?
See, in India, most of the people are engaged in agricultural activity. If you go by data, more than 60% of our population are engaged in agricultural activity. But if you see the data in terms of how much contribution is coming from that sector, it is very marginal. It is less than 20%. So when out of 100, 60 people are engaged in agriculture, but if you consider the contribution to national income, if total income is 100, then less than 20 INR is coming from this agricultural sector. So what we have to do, we have to increase productivity of this sector. So nowadays, India is implementing different policies so that our agricultural productivity can be increased. And we are intensely using AI, artificial intelligence, to understand or to increase productivity.
I see. Very interesting. Yeah. So some of lecturer here also said the same way I asked to you that because India is very famous by its technology, I mean the technology advancement. So that if we see here India's framework to reforms, that India government is mainly focused on agriculture because based on the data that agriculture productivity is higher than the technology advancement. That's why you put agricultural productivity here in India's framework for reform, Dr. Sanchita. Okay, so Dr. Sanchita, let me translate to Bahasa Indonesia to our students. Jadi teman-teman mahasiswa dan juga Bapak Ibu dosen, di dalam India Framework for Reform ini, bagian terpenting adalah agricultural atau pertanian. Walaupun India ini terkenal dengan teknologinya ya, mungkin dibanding Indonesia, teknologi India itu selangkah lebih maju karena banyak sekali ahli-ahli teknologi, kemudian CEO startup dunia seperti Apple, Amazon dan sebagainya yang mereka itu adalah orang India atau keturunan India. Namun ternyata berdasarkan data, agricultural atau pertanian ini malah menduduki posisi yang lebih penting daripada teknologi di dalam meningkatkan produktivitas atau sektor potensial dalam ekonominya India. Gitu. Jadi tetap bahwa agriculture atau pertanian itu menurut data itu lebih banyak istilahnya dilakukan atau orang-orang India sendiri itu kebanyakan dari agriculture, walaupun teknologi mereka juga sudah sangat maju seperti itu ya. Mungkin bisa dipahami oleh teman-teman mahasiswa dan juga Bapak Ibu dosen. So, if there are any questions related to Dr. Sanchita presentation, that it will be after the presentation session, yeah. So I'm going to open the question and answer sessions after that. Thank you very much, Dr. Sanchita, for the topic and for the insight. So now I'd like to call upon the next presentation from Assistant Professor Atrika Roy. Oh, sorry, wait a second. No, from Assistant Professor Priya Darsini Katarji.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sure.
All right. So first of all, very good morning to everyone present here. And I would like to thank both Universitas Panchashakti Tegal as well as EIILM Kolkata for this wonderful opportunity. And without further delay, I would like to start my presentation, but I'll just need a minute to share my screen. So if you'll
Yes.
please.
Yes, please.
All right. Do let me know if this is visible. So is the presentation visible?
Yeah. It is
All right.
visible.
All right. So, okay, I'll just start sharing. Just give me a minute. Just hold on just a minute, please. So I've shared the entire thing. I've started with the slideshow. Is it visible or is it the same screen?
It's
Okay.
clear enough.
All right. So the topic which I was supposed to speak on, which I'm supposed to speak on today, is the importance of emotional intelligence in business communication. So I'll start. Before we begin talking about emotional intelligence, I would first like to revise. I'm quite sure all of us already know, but still I would like to revise as to what is business communication. If we define it very simply, business communication involves exchanging information both within an organization and with individuals outside of it. Also, this type of communication fosters interaction between employees and management to achieve common goals while streamlining organizational procedures and minimizing mistakes. Now, it would be very, very easy to dismiss emotional intelligence as a mere pop psychology. However, if we look into studies have consistently shown that executives with a higher level of emotional intelligence have always been successful. So, in fact, a research which is by Carnegie Institute of Technology. It concluded that not 10, not 20, but 85% of our financial success is directly related to our ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead using emotional intelligence. So moving on to the next slide. Now we come to the main topic, that is, what is emotional intelligence? Now, emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, to control and express one's emotions, to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. So it can also be defined as the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as being able to understand and influence the emotions of others. Now, it involves being aware that emotions drive people's behavior and it impacts people either positively or negatively. So my emotions are not just restricted to myself. The way I handle my emotions describes how I react, and the way I react impacts people's behavior. It can either be positive or negative. Now, many CEOs use this to their advantage. One amazing example would be the CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, who uses his self-deprecating humor to make others feel comfortable around him. Moving on to the next slide. So we have to first understand the importance of emotional intelligence. So I have a few points. The first one would be, emotion is important because emotion can lead us to act without thinking. When we are overwhelmed with emotions, we often act without thinking. Now, having emotional intelligence can help us avoid those situations when we might act on impulse rather than fact. So basically what happens is, if we do not check our emotions, if we do not control our emotions, and we just react impulsively, we might say things, we might do things which we might regret later. Therefore, it is very, very important to control our emotions, which is emotional intelligence. The next point would be where emotional intelligence is significant is in understanding and managing our emotions and those of others, because that can help us to be more successful in our personal as well as professional life. Moving on to the next slide. Now that we have learned what is emotional intelligence and what are its importances, we have to understand when is EI helpful. Because if we do not know when is it helpful, we don't know how to implement it. So the first point would be when we are giving or receiving feedback, we have to understand that the human brain understands incentives. It works better when it receives incentives. So when we are giving feedback, instead of being harsh and critical to people, we can definitely point out the mistakes by being extra polite and by making sure that we are not hurting their emotions, their sentiments. So while giving or receiving feedback, we need to manage our emotions and say things properly so that we do not hurt anybody's sentiments. Next is navigating change. Now, this is very important. All of a sudden, if I come up one day and I say that my company has to work in a different way, these are the rules, and I just impose the rules onto other people, onto my employees, the first thing they will do is they will not agree. They will always try to come up and disagree to the changes. They will have lots of grievances. They will have lots of complaints. Instead, if I want to bring in a change, what I have to do is I have to make the people, my employees, I have to make them understand why is this change necessary. And I have to make them understand by understanding their psychology. I have to understand what they will prefer, what they will like. And if I can know that, I can use my emotional intelligence and convince them to undergo the change. Am I still audible?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Moving on to the third point, meeting tight deadlines. Now, the first thing that we do is when we are given a tight deadline, let's say I'm given a work today and I have to finish it by midnight today. So the first thing I'll do is I'll panic. I'll react, maybe I'll shout, or maybe, I'll just say that it's not possible. I won't be able to do. But that is not really a response. That's a reaction. When we are able to control our emotions, we respond, we do not react. So when we have tight deadlines, what we have to understand is that as it is, the deadline is there. If I waste my time without controlling my emotions and I go into some sort of panic attack, anxiety attack, or I react, I become angry, that will only waste my time. That will cause me stress. That will degrade my impression. That will affect the people around me. So what's the use of doing that? If I'm emotionally intelligent, then I'll be able to keep my calm and do the work so that I can meet tight deadlines. The next point would be working through setbacks and failure. So we all know life is not perfect, and therefore in our work life as well, we have to go through a lot of setbacks and failures, because whatever we plan, the reality is always different. There are lots of setbacks, there are lots of failures, but we must not feel low because of that. Because if we feel low, if we give up, then the work is not done. It is left incomplete. We will never be able to achieve success. So in order to achieve success, no matter how many setbacks we come across, no matter how many failures we meet, we just have to be emotionally intelligent. We'll have to keep our calm. We have to respond without reacting and do our work so that we can be successful. The next point is dealing with challenging relationships. Now, we all know that it's not possible to please everyone at the same time. If I talk about me, not everybody will like me, and that is okay. So there can be equations, there can be relationships where the equation is challenging. You might have to work with someone who you do not like. But what do you do then? Do you be like, okay, I don't like this person doesn't like me, I don't want to work with this person. But that's not very professional. So remember, this is business communication we are talking about, and we have to be extremely professional. And for that, we have to know how to manage our emotions, how to manage our reactions, and that will help us to deal with challenging emotions. So moving on to the next slide. Traditionally speaking, there are 4 domains of emotional intelligence. So the first one would be self-awareness. The second one would be self-management. The third one would be social awareness. And the fourth one would be relationship management. Now, if we talk about self-awareness means knowing ourselves, knowing our emotions, knowing what is triggering us. That will help us to understand. Is there a problem? No, right? Okay, all right. So knowing ourselves, knowing our emotions, and understanding what we want, what we are getting triggered to is self-awareness. Now that takes us to the second stage, which is self-management. Now, once we are aware of what we are feeling, how we are feeling, and what triggers us or what gives us incentive, if we know our own emotions, we know how to manage ourselves. So step 1 will lead us to step 2, that is self-management. Now that we have recognized what are our emotions, what are we feeling, and what are our triggers, we know how to manage ourselves. Something that is very important, because if we don't manage ourselves, we cannot control the external factors. And then after we have completed stage 2, we move on to the third part, which is social awareness. So what is social awareness? That is understanding, most of the times with empathy, the emotions of the people around us. So understanding myself is not enough. I have to be sensitive. I have to be sensible enough to understand the emotions of the people around us. So that is social awareness. So the people in the society, the people surrounding me, the people who are directly or indirectly linked to what I'm doing or where I'm working. And finally, now that you have understood your people, yourself, we move on to relationship management. Now, if I know my emotions, if I know the emotions of the other person, we definitely know how to manage the relationship between me and the other people. So that is relationship management. So as a good leader, each of these points, each of these 4 domains can help us face any crisis, and it also lowers the levels of stress. We can be less emotionally reactive, and also there will be fewer unwanted, unintended consequences. So moving on to the next slide. So in the previous slide, we have spoken about the 4 domains of emotional intelligence in terms of traditionally speaking. Now, in terms of recent theories, we have this amazing person, Daniel Goleman, who discovered a 5th element as well. So we'll come to that later. But before that, we'll just learn why is Daniel Goleman famous. So in his 1995 book, which is called Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, Daniel Goleman posits that emotional intelligence is as important as IQ for success, including in academic, professional, social, and interpersonal aspects of one's life. So we can see the picture of Daniel Goleman and also his book, which is given here. Now, what he did was, in 1998, he went on to apply his ideas around emotional intelligence, that is EI, to business leadership. And he wrote an article which is called What Makes a Leader. This article is published in the Harvard Business Review, and this article discusses another component. So we know in the traditional format, we have 4 domains or 4 components of emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman's contribution is the 5th component, which is motivation. So I'll just show you the 5 components according to Daniel Goleman. So the first one is self-awareness, as we can see on the left of our screen, self-awareness. Number 2 is self-regulation. Number 3, which is the one that Daniel Goleman included, that is motivation or self-motivation. The fourth one is empathy. And the fifth one is relationship management. So if we look at it carefully, we'll understand the 4 points are common with the traditional components. Only the third point, which is motivation or self-motivation, that has been incorporated by Daniel Goleman. So we'll discuss each one of these elements in a little bit of detail. So moving on to the new slide. The first one, as we have discussed, is self-awareness. So as I said before, if we are aware of ourselves, if I understand my emotions and my triggers, I know what is bothering me, or I know what is making me feel good. Now that will lead us to the second domain, which is self-regulation. So once I know my emotions, once I know my triggers, I can control or adjust my emotions to bring in a more positive effect. Now, being in control of my feelings, my emotions is very, very important in any professional environment, because emotions have a strong effect on other people. Emotions also create an impression about ourselves. So if we cannot regulate our own emotions, we are in a mess, and we definitely don't want that. Now, this is the new point which Daniel Goleman incorporated. So that is motivation. It is also sometimes mentioned as self-motivation. So motivation is the desire to do something and for a good cause, which will make us happy. So it relates to emotional intelligence, because we know we have a target. We are motivated to achieve that target because it will make us feel good. So that is also a part of emotional intelligence. If you can understand what will make people feel that sense of achievement, what will make me feel that sense of achievement, that is very important in running a business. So motivation is the desire to do something. It relates to emotional intelligence, because our desires can promote different feelings towards something. Moving on to the fourth point, empathy. Empathy is also social awareness, as discussed in the traditional format, the 4 domains. So empathy allows us to identify and understand the feelings of others. So empathy is basically putting myself in the shoes of the other person to understand why they are behaving the way they are doing, to put myself in somebody else's place and understand what they are feeling, what they're going through, what are their emotions, and why are they behaving in this particular way. So that is social awareness, nothing else. So empathy allows us to identify and understand the feelings of others, which will help us to handle workplace situations more effectively. For example, when a co-worker is stressed, and we can see that it is visible, instead of just ignoring the person, we can react with empathy. So that creates a better bond, that creates a better relationship with my co-worker. That brings us to the 5th point, which is social skills, which is also again relationship management. So social skills are tools we use to communicate and interact with others. Now, if we have strong social skills, that will allow us to listen, speak, resolve conflicts more effectively. And social skills can be used in the workplace to develop our career. And this is essential, very, very essential for good leaders. So we move on to the next slide, which is examples of emotional intelligence in business communication. So the first one would be, as I have mentioned before, constructive feedback instead of personal criticism. Now, let's say somebody has made a mistake. My employee has made a mistake. So instead of saying, you are a terrible person, you have done this, you are horrible, you have no idea what kind of an idiotic person you are, we cannot say that to the person, because we are personally criticizing. We are telling the person that the person is bad. So that is not really a very emotionally intelligent way to deal with it. Instead, we can say that the activity done is not correct. So we can criticize the behavior and not the person who did what he did or she did. So the next example would be supporting colleagues as well as consumers, the customers, through recognizing their emotions and working to reduce their stress. Now, one example would be the company Tesla. Now, Elon Musk had once thanked all the Tesla owners on Twitter for taking a chance, for taking a risk on his cars, especially when experts and his company said that, you know, this car wouldn't work. So everybody was against it. But even then, Elon Musk chose to come up online on Twitter and thank all the owners of his cars to say that whatever you have done, the way you have supported me is something that I recognize and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So supporting colleagues, supporting customers by recognizing their emotions, by showing gratitude to them will create a wonderful bond between them and the entrepreneur, as well as it will reduce stress. The next example would be keeping calm and being productive under pressure. So many a times what we do is we become so reactive, we start panicking, we start having anxiety, we start procrastinating when we come under pressure. So instead of doing that, what we need to do is we need to keep in mind that anyway, I have to do this work. So if I have to do this work, then why do I have to react? So this recognition, this realization, this comes from being emotionally intelligent. So keeping calm and being productive under pressure will obviously lead to an efficient functioning of any organization. Moving on to the next example, that is helping others to resolve conflicts that arise between team members. So if you're working in a team, we know unity is everything. In any organization, unity is a priority. Teamwork is priority. Without teamwork, an organization cannot function. So if there's a conflict within the team, between the team members, we must make sure that instead of blaming the other person, we have to understand the other person's emotions. So if, let's say, there are two parties having a conflict, if both the parties try to understand each other's emotions, each other's mental state, condition, I'm quite sure the conflict will be resolved as soon as possible. Okay, so that takes us to our next point. That is creating a workplace where people are free to express themselves openly. Now, an example would be SAP. So businesses such as SAP are clamoring to enroll their employees in a mindfulness course created by Google Engineer. Now, this class teaches self-awareness, and as a way to dramatically reduce stress, this is very, very helpful. So this course will train the employees not only to control their emotions, but that eventually will lead to controlling stress, reducing stress, and that will lead to better personal and professional communication. Next is making better negotiations with other parties. So of course, negotiation is a very, very important part in any business. And we know that the other party will only agree to what we are coming up with, our deal, if they have something that they want. So what is very important in order to make a proper negotiation is to understand what the other party wants. Now, if we understand what the other party wants, that means we are emotionally intelligent enough to assess the other person's psychology, the other party's psychology. So if we are emotionally intelligent, we can make better negotiations with other parties. So now we come to the last heading, which is benefits of using emotional intelligence in business communication, which is actually a topic. So the first one would be working towards the organization's goals, regardless of obstacles that arise. Now, just because there's some obstacle, we cannot let our emotions rule us or guide us, and we cannot just give up. So if all the members if all the employees of a company are emotionally intelligent, if they're trained to think that way, we can work towards the organization's goals, regardless of whatever obstacles, whatever hindrances we have. So we can just work towards that. Next would be a greater motivation among staff to understand their own emotions and those of their colleagues. So if all the employees are trained to be emotionally intelligent, if they're given that sort of self-awareness, I'm quite sure that all the employees, all the staffs of an organization will have an immense amount of motivation to understand their own problems, their colleagues' problems, their own emotions, their colleagues' emotions, and they can work together as one unit and bring in success. The next point would be healthy communication. Now, if our emotions are sorted, if we are emotionally intelligent enough to understand our own emotions, to understand the emotion of the other person, then I think healthy communication is the only outcome here. So healthy communication produces common goals across the business. Next, the next benefit would be the workforce has a positive outlook when it comes to the job at hand. So workforce, the people who are working on the ground level. So if they see that everybody at the workplace is having a positive mindset, they are emotionally intelligent, they are not being rude, they are not being hurtful, they're not hurting the sentiments, the desires, the wants of the other person. So automatically the workforce will have a positive outlook when it comes to the job at hand. Next would be positive relationships and deeper connections between employees. Now here comes an example of Ford. So the former Ford CEO, the former CEO of Ford, Alan Mulally, he had once handwritten notes delivered to employees for praising their work. So this is an example of positive relationship. So everybody is always there to criticize other people, but the CEO of Ford decided to thank everybody, not just through one printed message, but through handwritten notes. And that created a positive relationship and deeper connection between the employees and the CEO. The last point would be flexibility, because when we have highly emotionally intelligent employees, they can respond to changes effectively and handle any additional stress it brings. So they know how to deal with their emotions. They won't panic, they won't resist, they won't be angry, they won't be mad. They know what is being done. We have to work together, united, if we want to make this as a successful venture. So one amazing example, it's a very famous example, would be that of L'Oreal. So it's a 1997 case study from the L'Oreal cosmetic brand, where the company wanted to make a dramatic shift in the sales force, and it decided to recruit higher emotionally intelligent employees so that the productivity, the result can be good. And the result was amazing, because it led to an increase in profits, and the profit exceeded in terms of $2.5 million. They also experienced a nearly 63% drop in turnover. So we can understand that emotional intelligence is not just effective and not just useful on a personal level, but also in professional level, and it is an indispensable element in running a business smoothly in the long run. So with that, I would like to end my presentation. But I'm so sorry, I just have two more points. So improved efficiencies with empathetic staffs making decisions based on what is best for everyone involved. So again, if we can understand the other person's emotions, we work in a more efficient way. So as we can see, emotional intelligence is the key to both personal and professional success. I think that also brings us to the second last point, which is career progression. That is, staff with higher emotional intelligence are likely to excel in leadership positions. And finally, with that, this time we come to the end of the presentation. So once again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm quite sure this has been helpful to all of you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you so
Pia
much.
Darsini. So it's quite interesting since emotional intelligence is now becoming a popular things among the students itself. But Dr. Pia Darsini, could you please give us like a hint or what should the student do deals with the emotional intelligence? I mean, your presentation is from the perspective of leader, but what about the students? I mean, after they graduate, they will become member of the team. They will become staff in such a position. How to prepare in the
How to prepare,
workplace?
right?
Yeah, what the student do in preparing.
So at this stage, how is it possible to implement that?
Mhm.
Right. So I believe that if we reach a certain age, if we are working and then we are starting to learn, that's a difficult process. So as the future of the world, so we know that the students today are going to be our future tomorrow. So if we can at least, if not at least assess other people's emotions, if we as students, I still call myself a student because I believe we always have to learn. So if we as students can at least start analyzing our own emotions, so instead of just reacting, if we take 2 seconds to pause and think, okay, I feel angry because of this reason. I did not like what my teacher said because of this reason. So if we pause for a moment and if we think that, okay, I did not like this, but I should not react this way. I have to respond, not react. So emotional intelligence is not something we can acquire in one day. It's a long-term practice. And when we practice it, we are already implementing it. So if we are practicing it from today itself, whatever our professions or whatever age group we might be in, whether we are students, whether we are professionals, whether we are future leaders, if we are practicing being emotionally intelligent, at least in understanding our own emotions from today and every day, I think by the time they become leaders, they are in their professional lives, they will already be emotionally intelligent and they will be able to understand other people's emotions as well. So yeah, that's what
Okay.
we can do at this stage.
Yeah. So I think your opinion or your presentation also answer questions from Shahrafi. He asked about how we as humans develop emotional intelligence in ourselves. So the question is probably you have to know your emotional first. I mean,
Right.
by analyzing, by exploring, and
Right.
then by understanding your emotional intelligence. That's how
Right.
to
That is
develop.
always the first step,
Yeah,
the step
yeah,
one that we can
yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Shahrafi.
do.
I think your presentation, Dr. Pia Darsini, is very interesting. That's why many students ask about this one. So I go to Dimas Bagus. In your opinion, what is the most important soft skill or knowledge? Oh, what is the most important soft skill or knowledge in industry after the student graduate? Oh, okay. Which
After
one
the
is the most
students?
graduate? Which one is the most
Okay, so
soft skill or knowledge?
we might have a lot of knowledge, but what do we know? What do we mean by knowledge? Knowledge can be external, knowledge can be internal as well,
I
right?
think what Dimas mean here is the
The external
pedagogy.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Right, right. So I believe that both go hand in hand. You cannot really choose one. I can be extremely aware of my emotions without any knowledge, external knowledge. So that won't really be helpful. But at the same time, if I'm learning things from outside, I'm learning things in whatever course I'm pursuing, as well as I know my internal self, my emotions, my own skills as well. So they both are complementary to each other. They are not substitutes of one another. And as such, I think that brings out the best versions of ourselves. If we know both, if we have knowledge both of our internal selves as well as the external factors or whatever we are studying, they both go hand in hand, and that makes us more and more capable of handling social relationships and surviving and thriving in the professional world.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me translate to our students. Jadi soft skill dan ilmu pengetahuan yang kaitannya dengan pekerjaan itu harusnya memang bisa berdampingan atau tadi Dr. Priya bilang hand in hand gitu ya. Karena kita butuh kemampuan sosial kita untuk bisa beradaptasi dan kita butuh pengetahuan kita di tempat kerja untuk bisa survive. Jadi kedua-duanya harusnya bisa berdampingan antara soft skill dan juga knowledge. Okay, so we have some questions. This questions is come from Elisa Devia. I think this question is going to Dr. Sanchita. Dr. Sanchita, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, did education sector in Asia also still have challenge after the pandemic? Oh, it relates to your presentation. So did the education sector in Asia also still has challenge after the pandemic, in Asia especially?
In 2020-21, not only India, all over the world, there has been a challenge on learning. So now we have already overcome. So at present, there is no such challenge. Borders are open, so students can go abroad. We can also invite students to study here. So as of now, there is no such challenge in terms of learning.
Okay, yeah. And then this is also about your presentations. This questions comes from Angel Aulia. So agricultural productivity factors very influential in increasing the potential for economic and community production. So the question is, how do you think about how to improve other elements like creating public goods, trust-based governance, and private sector participation in order to match the high quality of agricultural productivity in India? Oh, meaning that, yeah, how other elements or other factors combine with agricultural productivity to enhance the economic in India? Please, Dr. Sanchita.
Yes, I have already mentioned that India is mostly agricultural based economy. But if you focus on the growth, the contribution of different sectors, primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector, then the most influential factor or the sector is tertiary sector, the service sector. But as most of the people are engaged in agricultural production, so obviously India has to develop its agriculture. So there are many steps has already been taken by the government of India. One of those steps is Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Act 2020. These reforms aim to provide farmers with better market access. Sometimes, due to lack of market access, they are not getting the actual price of their production. So they are getting a price which is far below the market rate. So government of India is trying to provide them a platform where they can get a good market access and reduce the power of intermediaries. There are many intermediaries who are marketing the product of the farmer from their farm to the market. So in between the intermediaries, they are getting commission. So when they are getting commission, basically they are getting it from the income of the farmer only. So government of India has taken some steps to reduce the power of intermediaries and by enhancing the income potential of the farmer.
Yeah, okay, Dr. Sanchita, let me translate to our students. Jadi sektor-sektor lain itu bagaimana mensupport sektor pertanian itu salah satunya kalau dilihat dari sektor teknologi adalah adanya platform yang digunakan untuk jual beli, contohnya untuk meningkatkan pendapatan, salah satu contohnya. Jadi semua sektor termasuk sektor private dan juga teknologi digunakan oleh pemerintah India untuk enhance atau meningkatkan sektor pertanian itu sendiri, salah satunya adalah teknologi. And also your presentation or your explanation answer questions from Miss Yustia Hapsari, our lecturer in Faculty of Economy, and she asked about how India government implements information technology to increase the growth of economy. I think your explanation is also answered these questions, Dr. Sanchita. Okay, yeah. And then next questions, I think one more questions from Fadli. I often hear about many Indians are very proficient in technology. Yes, they are. Even some of CEOs, the world largest technology companies comes from India. Yes, that's true. In your opinion, what makes them trusted as CEO? Oh, I think this question goes to Dr. Priya. Why many Indian people trusted to become CEO? Please, Dr. Priya.
All right. Thank you for the question. So I believe, and I'm not being biased because I'm an Indian, but what I believe is that in terms of knowledge, our foundations are very strong. So we whatever we learn, we are hardworking people, and we know that because from our school life, school level, the education policy, the syllabus, the whatever knowledge we acquire from our school level, if we compare that to, let's say, many other Western countries, we'll see the syllabus is quite different. What they learn in, let's say, college, we have already learned that in 10, 11, 12. So in terms of our foundation, in terms of our knowledge, we think, if you're talking about knowledge, so I think we have a very strong foundation. We are hardworking because we already have that pressure from our school life. And also, what is an extra factor is that living in India, we are so used to dealing with different sorts of cultures. So we are a secular country, and as such, we are so used to dealing with different sorts of cultures. We are used to adjusting, we are used to cooperating, we are used to understanding and assessing other people's emotions. And as such, what else would you need in a leader? So that is why I think many Indians are trusted to be CEOs.
Yeah, okay.
I believe, of course.
Thank you very much, Dr. Priya Darsini. So let me translate. Jadi kenapa banyak CEO yang berasal dari India atau banyak orang India yang dipercaya menjadi CEO di beberapa perusahaan besar di dunia? Karena salah satunya adalah emotional intelligence dari orang-orang India yang memang sudah teruji dari kecil. Karena apa? Banyaknya masyarakat atau jumlah penduduk India sendiri kemudian terekspos dengan berbagai macam culture gitu ya. Itu menjadikan emotional intelligence orang-orang India itu memang sudah atau sudah terbentuk gitu ya dari kecil. Maka ketika mereka bergabung dengan orang luar negeri atau mereka terekspos dengan berbagai macam kebudayaan, mereka sudah terbiasa. Maka mereka bisa menganalisa kepribadian orang lain, menganalisa kebutuhan yang dibutuhkan di dalam dunia kerja. Maka emotional intelligence itu menjadi faktor utama mengapa kemudian banyak orang India yang dipercaya menjadi CEO, karena ya mereka sudah biasa terekspos dengan berbagai macam kebudayaan. Kemudian tingkat penduduk yang tinggi di India juga menjadikan salah satu faktor akhirnya banyak penduduk India yang memang survive gitu ya, berlomba-lomba untuk bisa terserap di dunia kerja. Itu salah satu faktornya. Yeah, thank you very much. Also, one more question from Miss Rani. She's our lecturer in Faculty of Economic and Business. Please, Miss Rani.
Thank you, Miss Nana. Introduce, my name is Rani. I'm a lecturer from Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas Pancasakti Tegal. Here, I would like to give question for Dr. Priya. I'm so interested to your presentation. Well, we know that competencies and skill is so important for us, yeah, for the every individual and organization. But sometimes we have to work together and we have to be teamwork, but the barrier, sometimes we face more or less emotional intelligence from our partner. Our partner have a lower emotional intelligence, so sometimes we have a barrier to communicate with them. So what should we do to face the partner who have a lower level emotional intelligence? Thank you very much.
All right.
Dr.
Thank you
Bella.
for the question. I mean, this will help me to explain my point more. That is, if all of us, so again, in reality, the plan is, so whatever we plan and whatever is actually implemented, there's always a huge gap. We all know that. But if we can at least, as I mentioned in one of my examples, the businesses like SAP. So in such cases, what they did was, once they recruit employees, they train them, they make them go through a course of becoming emotionally intelligent. I think that is the maximum we can do. Let's say if we're working in a team, of course, it's a problem if I'm emotionally intelligent, but my team members are not. So that creates a problem, definitely. So what we can do, the least we can do to overcome this is, once somebody is recruited in the company, we can make each and everyone, just like, we train our employees to work in a specific way. We can also train our employees to react in an emotionally intelligent way. So they can go through courses, just like any other training for the professional work. We can also make them go through. And also, in my opinion, I believe that training somebody to be emotionally intelligent at that age in the professional space is not a one-time thing. I think we can regularly have such sessions, such workshops, where we can again and again put it into the minds of our employees, even ourselves, how we should respond and not react, and how we can keep our emotions, our personal biases aside and work together as a team. I think that is what we can do on a regular basis, though. Once in a blue moon won't help, but on a regular basis, definitely. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Does that
Dr.
answer your
Priya.
question?
Does it answer your question, Ms. Rani?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Answer my question.
She's beside me, by the way.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think I have one more interesting question, goes to Dr. Sanchita, talking about inflation. Very huge topic, I guess. So the question is, Dr. Sanchita, how the government of India taking steps to reduce such inflation? I think this is kind of a very topic that people talk about in this era, the inflation. How does the government of India taking steps?
Thank you for this question. See, inflation is continuous rise in general price level over a period of time. So when any government, it is not only for India, any government, the major objective of any policy is to reduce the rate of inflation and to enhance growth of the economy. But the irony is that the policy which can reduce inflation rate, it will also reduce growth of the economy. So we have to tackle both the issues simultaneously. We have to make sure that our economy is growing, and at the same time, we can balance the inflation rate. So there are two policies by which these two problems can be controlled. I mean, we can enhance growth as well as we can have control over the inflationary situation. The two policies are, number one is fiscal policy, which is taken once in a year at the time of budget. So fiscal policy is nothing but the revenue and expenditure policy of the government. So why inflation is happening? It is because of increase in money supply in the hands of the people. So somehow if we can have control over the money supply, in the economy, then we can automatically control inflationary pressure. So one way, if we increase tax rate. So if we increase tax rate, then the money which are already within the hands of the liquid money I'm talking about, in the hands of the people. So when the tax is increasing, the disposable income of the people will be going down. So they will spend less amount of money, less demand will be created. And due to this less demand, obviously, inflation will be controlled. But this is not a good policy to control inflation. Because if less demand is created, then less production will take place. Less production means less employment rate. Unemployment will be more. So by fiscal policy, if we want to control inflation, it is not as the very good one. The second option is by using monetary policy. Monetary policy, you know that the students of economics, they know it, that it is not directly from government, it is through the central bank of the economy. So how they go by this monetary policy? They increase different rates, bank rate, repo rates. So when all the rates are different, so then again people will start investing their money for some fixed asset. So they will keep their money in bank. So again the money supply will be less in the economy. So generally government, what government does, government take a policy mix. So fiscal policy, as I have mentioned already, it cannot take on one day or this day and again next day basis. It is taken once in a year. So keeping in mind the fiscal policy, in our case for Indian economy, it is Reserve Bank of India, RBI. They can take different monetary policy on time to time. So this is the way how government can control inflation.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Sanchita. Let me translate. Jadi ada beberapa kebijakan yang bisa diambil oleh pemerintah, salah satunya adalah kebijakan fiskal. Mungkin teman-teman dari FEB lebih paham terkait ini ya. Tapi ada satu opini dari Dr. Sanchita yang menarik tadi bahwa ada satu unpopular strategy begitu ya yang bisa digunakan, yaitu dengan menekan permintaan. Jadi menekan permintaan itu juga bisa digunakan untuk menurunkan inflasi, tapi ada efek buruknya tentu ya. Kalau permintaan ditekan, otomatis perekonomian tidak bisa berputar atau perekonomian tidak bisa meningkat seperti itu. Tapi cara ini bisa dilakukan walaupun bukan strategi yang populer begitu. Thank you very much, Dr. Sanchita. Thank you very much, Dr. Pia Darsini. Also, I would like to say hi to Dr. Juliani Rahmatika. She's with us right now. Dr. Dean.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you very much also for all the lecturers from Faculty of Economics and Business. We have Miss Eva, we have Miss Justia, also we have Miss Rani, Miss Agnes. And ladies and gentlemen, all the students, could you please to turn on your camera, your phone or your device so we can... Yeah. Oh yeah, please, Dr. Dean.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Sanchita, Prof. Ria, Prof. Aratrika, and Prof. Srimoye. On behalf of Universitas Pancasakti Tegal, we acknowledge this collaboration, and I'm very grateful for the implementation of these 2 days of activities. We do hope that this collaboration can always develop so that our children can grow smarter and smarter. So, Dr. Sanchita, we are waiting for another program with great enthusiasm. Thank you very much.
Surely. We are also looking forward for more such programs.
Absolutely.
I'll share with you, I have something in my mind which we are going to implement very shortly.
Yes, of course. We are waiting.
Thank you very much.
Riana?
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Dean. Mas Widi, could you please help me to screenshot the, what is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh yeah, okay, good. So everyone, please look at the camera. Please make sure that you turn on your camera so we can screenshot and then we can post it later on. So everyone, please be ready. 3, 2, 1. Okay, Mas Widi, one more time. Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Done, Mas Widi?
Sudah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our agenda of sit-in program between Universitas Pancasakti Tegal and also EIILM Kolkata, India. And we hope that we can do collaborations in the near future, not only for Faculty of Economic Business, but also probably for other faculty. Is it right, Dr. Sanchita? Okay, thank you very much, and I hope we can see you in another occasions in the near future. Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Assalamualaikum
Thank
warahmatullahi
you. Have a
wabarakatuh.
great day. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Yeah.